Hello, welcome to a new video. It is that time where it's time to wrap up the books I read last month. So here is my January reading wrap up. So I had an amazing January. So I finished 16 books in total. I did not DNF anything. I read 7,698 pages and I listened to 68.5 hours of audio. I had no 2 stars. I had 1 3-star, 5 4-stars, and 10 5-stars. Like, start of the year as I mean to go on. So, let's do this. So I started the year with Blade Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. Now, I was worried because last year I started the year with a sequel book and I 2-starred it and unhauled everything by that author. So I was very worried about what I was going to start the year off this year. And I took a risk. And I read the second book in the Realm Breaker trilogy. And this did not disappoint. This was a 4-star. It wasn't a 5-star, but I will take a 4-star over a 2-star any day for my first book of the year. So this was a 4-star. I really enjoyed it. I really liked the direction it went into. I do think I should have probably read a quick wrap up because it took me a chapter or 2 until my brain had fully caught up with what had happened at the end of Realm Breaker, because it's been a couple of years since I read that. So I do think I should have maybe read a quick recap of Realm Breaker, because it took me a couple of chapters before I was fully back in the story. But overall, this book was great, and the ending was just so good, and I cannot wait for Fatebreaker. I'm gonna try not to leave it too long after I get Fatebreaker. So Fatebreaker comes out in February, but I'm not getting my copy until I go to the London event on the 11th of March. So yeah, or is it the 18th of March? It's in March at some point. So yeah. Next up, I read Second Chance Books by Karina Gaskell. This was an arc that was very kindly given to me by the author, and life happened at the end of last year, and it was an ebook and I kept forgetting about it and I feel so bad. But I've read it. It was a 4-star. I really enjoyed this. I will say I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. And I do think it was because of the character. The plot was great. I really enjoyed the plot. But the main 2 characters, and actually not so much the main 2 characters, but every single character that was trying to interfere, I didn't like them. Every time they did something, like a character would come along, I would start liking them, and then they would do something to interfere with the 2 main characters, and it just seemed to spiral, and I just didn't like the character after that. I don't like people interfering in other people's love lives without them asking. So yeah, but overall I enjoyed the plot. The plot was great. Next, we have the Oanda Sword by Tasha Suri. This is the second book in the Broken Kingdoms trilogy, the first book being The Jasmine Throne. This was a 5-star. This was so good. Now, I was shocked that I enjoyed Jasmine Throne. We all know this. It's the only book of the Sapphic Trifecta that come out in like 2020 or 2021 that I have actually loved. It was a 4-star, and I finished that book in November, and I fully was like, I think this could like get a 4 or 5-star for the second book if it's as good as this. And then it was better. I am obsessed with the magic system in this, and I absolutely love that I went into the first book knowing that the romance is a very, very tiny part of the plot. I wouldn't even count it as a romance. Like, it's a side plot. It's the political intrigue and the magic, and it just all continues into the second book, and it was great. And now I have to wait for the third book. This is why I don't continue series, because then I have to wait. I don't like waiting. Next up was one of my most anticipated books of the year that I got an arc for. I won the competition at Yelk. So it's Sleep Like Death by Kaylin Bayron. So cast your mind back to 2020 when I first started this channel and I read Cinderella is Dead. I loved it. It was one of my favourite books of the year. And I will say this is going to get an honourable mention in this year's because it has been snubbed by a book we have no shock it has been snubbed by. But we're going to get to that later. This was so close to being my favourite book of the month. This blew me away. I don't like Cinderella or Snow White, but I love retellings of them. And this retelling with Cinderella is Dead, if you've read it, you'll know it's, well, even if you've read the blurb, you'll know technically it's not a retelling. It is set 200 years after Cinderella has lived and died. And it's I don't class it as a retelling. This, however, is a retelling of Snow White. And the way she has twisted the story is so clever. I would never have thought of doing it this way, but it works. And I was in awe. I had so much fun reading this. I'm so glad I've read it. If you're really excited about this, I'm really sorry you've got to wait till June. But on the plus side, it's this half of the year. So yeah, it's no surprise this was a 5-star. I buddy read this with Ash and I had the best time. And I also, this was like a physical only read because obviously it doesn't come out till June, it's an ARC. So there's no audiobook yet. So I had to physically read it, and I found separating out the pages and reading like 50-ish pages a day was so helpful to me. And we're going to come back to that point a bit later on. Next, me and my mum continued our Percy Jackson universe journey and we read The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. This is the first book in the Heroes of Olympus series, which is the second Percy Jackson series. This was a 5-star. I'm not shocked in the slightest. I don't think any of the Percy Jackson books for me have been less than a 5-star. I love the characters. I especially love the new characters that got introduced and getting to know them and know their backgrounds. I'm excited to learn even more about them and for the certain plot line that started in this book to continue. Next up was the first book I pulled from my 12 books of 2024, and it was Tori's pick. It was Painted Devils by Margaret Owen. This was a 5-star as well. I'm not shocked considering how much I loved Little Thieves when I read it, but this was just so good. I continue to adore these characters. I love everything they do. They can do no wrong. And if anyone tells me otherwise, I don't need that negativity in my life. They are perfect and I love them. That is all. Next up is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Chloe was insanely happy that I finally read this book. I've been putting off this book for a while. This was a 4-star. Now, the reason it was a 4-star for me and not a 5-star was purely because my trigger's in it. The trigger itself doesn't diminish the book. I loved the book. I just couldn't give it a high enough thing for enjoyment for me personally. However, anyone that doesn't have that trigger, you are going to love it because this is an amazing book. I just personally couldn't give a book that broke me that much in that way 5 stars because it was a very personal thing. If I'd had no personal like feelings linked to it, I would have cried still, yes, but it wouldn't have been a personal thing. So it would have got a 5-star. But overall, I absolutely loved this. The romance was so good. I did not see how it was going to end, and then it happened the way it did. And I was like, this is so clever. I really enjoyed how this wrapped up, and it was just so cute, but also heart-wrenching. This is not a light-hearted book. It's not a light-hearted romance. There is a lot of sadness in this, but there is also happiness and romance. It's not all sad. Next up, I needed so badly to bring some joy into my life after that book, so I read Rainbow Grey Battle for the Skies by Laura Ellen Anderson. This was a 5-star as well. I've loved this series. It brings me so much joy. It is so cute. Did this end of the second book break me? Yes. Did this one make me cry for completely different reasons? Yes. This was such a wholesome ending to the series, and I'm so happy with how it ended, but also heartbroken that it's over. Will I read everything this woman brings out? Yes. I'm already reading the Amelia Fang series and having the best time, but I just saw today, the day I'm filming this, there is a new series coming out by this author, and I will be getting it. Next up was The Long Game by Elena Armas. This was my 3-star, and you don't know how much it pains me to say that. I loved The Spanish Love Deception. I loved The American Roommate Experiment even more. Like, that book was just everything. This was a disappointment. If this had been Elena Armas's debut book, I don't think I would have been as disappointed. However, I know the male love interests this woman can write. And he just wasn't it. He was making me cringe so much. Now I know she can write a sex scene. Not in this, she can't. I had to skip it because it was making me cringe that much. I was pulling a face. Like, there was a visual representation of how much that scene was making me cringe. So yeah, overall I quite enjoyed the story. Considering it's a small town romance and I don't usually read small town romances, I was pleasantly surprised by how much I quite enjoyed that side of it. But the actual him, no, I didn't like him. It was a 3-star. It was a disappointment. I will be reading the sequel to this when it comes out. I think it's going to be The Shortlist or something like that. She did say at the signing I went to, because yeah, I was so confident I was going to love this. I got it signed and personalised. I'm sure she said the sequel to this is The Shortlist. And I am intrigued to read that because I know which 2 characters it's going to follow, and I'm excited to see that. But yeah, this weren't it. Next, we had another anticipated read of the year, and it is Blood Flowers by Jamie McGuinness. This was a 4-star. I really enjoyed this. I was pleasantly surprised. I was very worried going into this because Jamie McGuinness is a singer. He is a performer. He is Jay from The Wanted. And I really did not know what to think of this. And then I won an ARC at Yelp, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to find out. I was going to buy the book anyway. I do need to get a finished copy because I ended up really enjoying this. This was a 4-star, so it wasn't perfect. I wasn't expecting this to be 5-star material. I did think this would be a 4-star, but for a first ever book, this is a really good story. I really enjoyed the characters. The magic system world was great. The whole flowers and the town that they live in was really well thought up. And while it did read on the slightly like, not younger side of YA, sort of like middle ground YA. Like, I think the main characters were like 16 in this, but they did read like they were like 14, 15. But not in a bad way. Like, it didn't diminish my enjoyment. And I'm really excited to see where this goes in the rest of the series. Also, should say, I said I'd come back to it later. When I was reading Sleep Like Death, obviously as a buddy read, set out different pages. I thought I would try that with this. Even though it wasn't a buddy read, I set it out into 50-ish pages a day because I knew I was going to have to read it physically. And I had the best time. I don't know if that'll work for every single book that I have to read physically, but it worked for this, and I'm really, really happy with that. Next up, we're into a little bit of a reread territory. So I reread Sword Catchup by Cassandra Clare. I did reread, like, it's really starting to wear here. I think I'm going to have to move my tabs over to a different edition because I want to retire this. I think I said that in my vlog. I want to retire this edition from reading. But I had so much fun rereading this. This was, again, obviously a 5-star. It was a 5-star when I read it last year as well. I'm really excited to talk about this on the live show on the 6th of February. I don't actually know if this is going up before that live show. It might not be. No, I think it is. It is. You will see this before the live show. So the live show for this book is the 6th of February. Obviously, we'll be talking all things spoilers. But from the people that have read it, that are going to be joining me on screen. It's going to be a really interesting discussion. Everyone enjoyed it, but not everyone gave it 5 stars. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion we're going to have about it. So yeah, it will still be on my channel even if you don't watch it live and you would like to watch it. Still in reread territory, we have Empire of Storms by Sarah J Maas. Obviously, I'm taking part in Mass Along, which is being hosted by Ash and Tori. I will leave the link to the Twitter down below. It's everything Mass has written. So January and February is actually collectively Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. The reason being is you can do the tandem read. So you read like certain chapters of this, certain chapters of Tower of Dawn, and keep going back and forth. I know a few people have done it and are enjoying doing that. I personally know I will hate it doing it that way. So I'm sticking with Empire of Storms this month, and you'll see Tower of Dawn next month. This is one of my favourite books. This is one of my favourite books. So my favourite 3 books in the Throne of Glass series are Heir of Fire, Kingdom of Ash, and Empire of Storms. Best 3 in the series, and so much happens in this. Like, look at the tabs. We're going to ignore how much blue's there. It's not all sad crying. I would like to preface this. When there's blue tabs, it doesn't mean sadness. It just means emotion. It just means I cried. And I cry at everything, good and bad. So that's not a spoiler. It breaks you in the best way. I love it. And then the final of my rereads of January was House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. I had to reread this before House of Flame and Shadow came out. When this came out in 2022, I reread the first book before this one came out, and then I read this on release day. So it was only right I reread this before the third book come out. I didn't need a refresher because this book has stuck with me for the last 2 years. I've not stopped thinking about it for the last 2 years, especially in the last like couple of months. However, I wanted to, and I had the best time. I forgot just all the little things that aren't like necessary to the plot, but are just like little things that just make me happy in this book. So yeah, obviously it was a 5 star. Should have said that. I can't remember if I said, but Empire of Storms is a 5 star as well. Literally any Sarah J Maas book is a 5 star. And then we're no longer on rereads. I read Bloody Rose by Nicholas Ames. This was a 4 star. Now, I did enjoy this, and I am looking forward to the third book. I think this is a trilogy. I was a little bit disappointed. Now, Kings of the Wild was incredible. That was also a 4 star. However, I looked up the exact core pile numbers, and Kings of the Wild was a higher number than Bloody Rose. And the reason being, he put so much thought into his male characters in that first book. And some of these female characters, I was bored. Like, I didn't really care. For example, Kira. Kira at first was really interesting. I was so interested to learn about her. And then there was just like nothing to note, really. And I was so disappointed because, dude, you wrote your male characters really well. Give your female characters the same kind of dedication and love. Anyway, this was sapphic, but again, because I was bored, I'm making it sound like I didn't enjoy this book. I enjoyed the plot. I enjoyed the furthering of the world. The characters were let down. So, yeah. Then, I still had a little bit of time on the 29th, and I realised I had a ebook hold from my library, so I read The Mighty Nine Origins, Caleb Widogast. So this is a character who is created by Liam O'Brien for Critical Role, obviously. This is his campaign 2 character. And I will say this was a 5 star because I love this character. I love like his story, and it's Mighty Nine. However, this didn't really bring much more to his story than what I already knew from the little bit I've seen of campaign 2. So I would have liked a little bit more, but we did get to see how he ends up at the magic school, essentially, which is something I didn't know. So I did learn something, but that was like the only thing. The rest of it I already knew. But yeah, I did really enjoy this because it's Caleb. And then I finished the month on the 30th of January. I did not read on the 31st because on the 30th of January, House of Flame and Shadow came out and I binged it. I sat there with my audiobook and I didn't speak to anyone for 10 hours. I binged it. This is an 848 page book. I binged it. This was a lot of information to take in 10 hours, but I had the best time. This was a 5-star. This went in a direction I wasn't expecting. I had my theories based off of what happens in book 2, which obviously everyone sort of had the same theories. And well, some people had the same theories, but it did different things. And I don't think I was right on any of my theories. And I am actually so happy about that, because even though when I first thought of the theories, I was like, I need this to happen. And then when I started reading and realised that wasn't going to happen, I was actually relieved. And I didn't think I would be. And I'm really glad it went the way it did, because it was so good. I cannot wait to reread it again at the end of the year. Like when Massillon gets to Crescent City, because I'm so excited. I would have been holding up a physical copy because I ordered through work, but work had delays and it's not even been dispatched yet. It is the 1st of February today. It's apparently getting dispatched tomorrow. That doesn't help me hold up the book. It also means I can't add it to my haul video because I don't have it. It's frustrating. Anyway, this was my favourite book of the month. Are we shocked? No, but honourable mention to Sleep Like Death. This will get an honourable mention because this was amazing and I loved it. And if I wasn't reading the Sarah J Maas book in the same month, this is what happened last year. I read the 3rd Good Girl's Guide to Murder book and it was like my favourite book. And then I got granted the E-Arc for Love Theoretically, and I felt really bad for Holly Jackson because her book just got like pushed out of the top spot for the month. So we got an honourable mention, and that's what this is going to get this year. Let me know in the comments what your favourite book that you read in the month of January was. Let me know if you if you're planning on reading Flame and Shadow, or if you have read Flame and Shadow. No spoilers. If anyone posts any spoilers in comments, I will delete your comment because we don't need that. We don't need people being spoiled. If you would like to talk to me about Flame and Shadow, feel free to message me privately on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. But don't do it publicly where other people can see, because I don't want my friends and anyone to be spoiled by this book. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.